What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. Season of Discovery has been out for just about a week, and it's given me enough time to really fine-tune my Warrior BIS and pre-raid BIS gearing guide. So without further ado, guys, let's dive in. Alright guys, so here we are on 60 upgrades, and this is my absolute BIS Warrior gear guide. This is going to be the best pieces of gear that you can go for. Some of it is in raid and some of it is out of raid. By the end of this build, you're going to just about have a 15% chance to crit, which is absolutely ridiculous at level 25. You will be pumping. So let's start off with our headpiece. We have the Artemis Cowl. And the Artemis Cowl drops inside of BFD, and it's going to drop off of Lady Cereves. I'm going to pull these up here so that you guys can see exactly where to get them. It has a 20% drop chance off Lady Cereves, so that's going to be your absolute best in-slot helm. A close second would be the Twilight Avengers helm if you can get your hands on this. This is a nice set to have, but this helm will actually put out more DPS if you don't have the set bonuses from Twilight Avengers. Moving on down to our neck piece, we have the High Tide Choker. This drops off Baron Aquinas, the first boss in BFD. It's a 25% drop chance, so pretty high drop chance, but it's an absolutely beast necklace. You got 4 agility and 7 strength off of that, and a close second to that before you get it would be your Sentinels Medallion, which you can achieve by getting honored with Silverwing Sentinels or Warsong Outriders if you are Horde. But the High Tide Choker is light years ahead of the Sentinels Medallion when it comes down to just pure raw DPS. So moving on down to our shoulders, the best in-slot shoulders here are still going to be the BOE Bristlebark Amis shoulders. These have a very, very low drop chance though, so I suggest using something like the Glimmering Mail Pauldrons or the Elite shoulders. You can get them off vendors or the auction house fairly cheap, and they're going to give you 6 strength, which is not as good as the Bristlebark Amis just because you're getting a little bit of crit mixed with your attack power on this piece of gear, but these are just a close second, and the difference between these 3 sets of shoulders is pretty minimal, so I would settle for any of these two right here, the Elite shoulders or the Glimmering Mail Pauldrons, if you can't get your hands on these. This is a very low drop chance. I think it's like below 1% on every mob that does drop it. It does drop off mobs in Ashenvale, so if you're grinding for like reputation crates or anything, you could try and farm it, but I would just settle for the Elite shoulders or Glimmering Mail Pauldrons until you can get your hands on that. And then obviously another one would be the Mantle of Thieves. If you can get your hands on this, 10 agility is pretty huge. It's a lot of crit and some attack power right there, but these will be easier to pick up. Moving on down to our cape, there is no better cape than the Sergeant's Cloak. They kind of reworked it. If you could see the stats on it, it's basically a Seal of Rin. You're getting 4 of every single stat on here, so obviously the ones that are going to benefit your DPS are going to be the 4 strength and 4 agility, but a close second would be the Glimmering Thresher Cape, which gives you 6 strength and drops off Gamura, the turtle boss inside of BFD. And before you can get into the raid or get the Sergeant's Cloak, if you want a decent cloak, we can obviously go with the Cape of the Brotherhood from Dead Mines or the Glowing Lizard Scale Cloak from Wailing Caverns. Moving on down to our chest, obviously our best in slot is the Shining Silver Breastplate, which is a BOE that's crafted by blacksmiths, but if it's too pricey and you can't get your hands on one of these, you can always opt to go for the Mutant Scale Breastplate, which drops in Wailing Caverns off Mutanus the Devourer. Has a 23% chance to drop, and I actually got pretty lucky and got it on my first Wailing Caverns run on my warrior, so yeah, that was really, really lucky. And then third in line would be the Twilight Avengers Chain. In raid, it's 9 strength, 6 agility, 8 stamina. Now, just keep in mind, guys, that the Void crafted pieces of gear, like the Shifting Silver Breastplate and the Void Touch Leather Gloves, are unique Void Touched, meaning you can only equip 1 Void Touched item. So if you do opt to go for the breastplate, which will be decent for DPS, it's basically a stronger Shining Silver Breastplate with an equip that is kind of geared more towards tanking, but it also does give you 1% hit, so I could see using it for DPS as well. Just know that if you do that, then you cannot use the Void Touched Leather Gloves. So I would suggest using the Shining Silver Breastplate, the Mutant Scale Breastplate, or the Twilight Avengers Chain if you get it to drop in raid, and using the Void Touched Leather Gloves instead. They're a little bit better in terms of DPS. So moving on down to our wrists, we have the Bindings of Serikis, right? The Bindings of Serikis drop off Gamura, the turtle boss, again in BFD. You're going to get 6 strength, 4 stamina for these. The Pugilist Bracers are definitely a little bit better in terms of raw DPS, but they're a BOE drop from Razorfen Crawl, which people are farming. So if you can afford these or you can farm them yourself, they definitely are better. But the Bindings of Serikis are not bad at all, and they're going to be a lot easier to farm than the Pugilist Bracers. Moving on down to our weapons. So this is where there has been a little bit of controversy. Testing both out, I can honestly say that dual wielding at level 25 is going to outperform using a two-hander by a long shot. I am currently still running Smite's Hammer on my warrior. I'm doing decent DPS, but I'm waiting until I get the right weapons and the single-minded Fury rune to go one-hander. The problem is it's locked behind Honored Rep, so I'm trying to pump out videos, but also trying to farm reps so that I can get that rune and switch to dual wielding. But after checking this out, your absolute best DPS will come from dual wielding, and the best weapons you can use are going to be the Honed Darkwater Talwar, which drops in BFD itself off of Lady Seraves. And then your offhand, we're going to be running the Chipped Bite of Serikis, which is a 1.8 speed dagger that drops off Gamura. So this is going to be your setup. You're going to run the sword in your main hand. It's a nice 2.7 speed weapon with 82 top end damage, 23 DPS. You're going to enchant that with +2 melee damage. And then the same thing with your Chipped Bite of Serikis. This is your faster weapon. It's going to be your offhand. It is a dagger, but yes, it is the most DPS, and you're going to enchant that with 2 weapon damage as well. So for your gloves, you're going to want to craft the Void Touched Leather Gloves with leatherworking. These gloves are essential. They're going to give you another 1% chance to hit, 6 agility, 6 stamina, 3 spirit, and then an on-use effect that's going to descend you into madness and increase your attack speed by 10%. But just keep in mind that when you use this, you will be generating 10% more threat as well. This effect will last 10 seconds, but it is going to vastly improve your DPS. And you're going to enchant your gloves with the Endless Rage rune. Now, if you guys need to figure out how to craft these things like the breastplate and the gloves, I'm going to be making a video on how to unlock the crafting for these. You will have to have cleared some of the raid to be able to craft these items, but I'll get into that in the video. It's a little bit of a lengthy process. It's not hard. It's kind of expensive. It's going to cost you probably around 8 to 10 gold, depending on your server, to be able to unlock the crafting for these pieces of gear. Now, if you can't get your hands on the Void Touched Leather Gloves, we have the Brawler's Gloves, which are a BOE. These are really nice. You're going to get 8 strength from those. If you could pick those up, that would be great as well. We have the Algae Gauntlets, which are mail gloves that drop off Gelihast in BFD. These would definitely be your close second, 10 strength, 3 agility, 4 stamina. But if we're talking completely before we go in raid, honestly, just pick yourself up Glimmering Mail Gauntlets off the auction house. They shouldn't be more than 2 or 3 gold, and they're going to be a close third in line to your glove slot. Next would be the Algae Gauntlets, and then obviously the best in slot would be the Void Touched Leather Gauntlets. Moving on down to our belt. Honestly, there is no better belt currently in this phase than Cobran's Grasp. Cobran's Grasp drops off Lord Cobran in Wailing Caverns, has an 18% chance to drop. I got lucky and got this on my first Wailing Caverns run. I was actually pretty stoked about that, but there is no better belt in the raid or out of the raid that is going to outperform this belt in terms of raw DPS, so I suggest going and farming this. Until you can get your hands on that though, a nice belt to use would be the Glimmering Mail Girdle. It's a nice 7 strength belt, and you can probably pick it up on the auction house fairly cheap. Moving on down to our leg slot, we have the Leggings of the Faithful that drop off Lady Seraves. These have a 25% chance to drop, but they're huge. They have 9 stamina, 10 strength, and 7 agility. Again, these are massive. These are your best in-slot legs for this phase, and a close second would be the Glimmering Mail Leg Guards. Again, another pair of legs that can be 2 or 3 gold on the auction house and would just give you tons of DPS because of that 8 strength, 7 agility. And then if you're Alliance and you do the Dead Mines quest, Chassis of Westfall would not be bad. However, you're just getting 11 strength. You're not getting any agility from this, so you're not getting any crit. You're just getting straight up attack power. And then I would say 4th in line would be the Leggings of the Fang. Get those to drop off Lord Cobran in Wailing Caverns. Those are massive. I would honestly choose the Leggings of the Fang over Chassis of Westfall, but the Leggings of the Faithful would be your best in slot for phase 1. Moving on down to our boots, we have the Silver Hand Sabatons. These boots drop in BFD and they drop off of Lorgus Jet. These are enormous. They're 9 strength, 5 agility, 4 stamina. There are simply no better boots that are going to compete with these in this phase. There are a couple of runner-ups, however. We have the Twilight Slayer's foot pads, which also drop inside of BFD off of Lorgus Jet. So if those drop, you can definitely roll on those as a DPS warrior. Those are a massive increase. And the Twilight Avengers boots drop in there as well. But before stepping foot into the raid, if you have a ton of gold and you can get your hands on a pair of Feet of the Lynx, these would be the absolute best in slot pre-raid pieces of gear for your feet. And then if you want something a little bit cheaper, Slayer slippers are just a nice 6 strength, 4 spirit foot slot item. So moving on to our rings, we have the Protector's Band, which is the honored PvP ring with Silverwing Sentinels or Warsong Outriders. 4 strength, 4 agility, 2 stamina. This ring is absolutely huge, so I would suggest farming that. Or if you can get your hands on Seal of Rin, if you're Alliance, this is a nice replacement for this ring or one of your rings. Seal of Rin is absolutely humongous, so I would suggest using this. Everyone is doing it on Alliance side. It is a bit of a wait when you try and hand in the quest and do the next part. It is a nightmare right now. I'm assuming it'll slow down as the phase progresses, but this is one of the best rings you can use at this level. Protector's Band, another close second. You can get this really easily from getting honored with your Warsong rep. Silverlane's Family Seal is another one that drops in Shadowfang Keep off Baron Silverlane. It has a 20% chance to drop. This is a pretty big one. And then obviously the best ring in this phase that you can equip is the Band of the Iron Fist. And how you get this ring is by killing the mobs outside of BFD. They can drop a note, a damp note, which will start a quest that will lead you to this quest, Allegiance to the Old Gods, which will then have you kill Lorgus Jet in Black Fathom Deeps, and then you turn it in right here on the Zoram Strand in Ashenvale, and you're able to choose the Band of the Iron Fist as a reward. However, if you're trying to get rings before stepping foot into the raid, clearly that's not going to work. So I would suggest going for Silverlane's Family Seal or Protector's Band or Seal of Rin. Now moving on down to our trinkets, we have the Avenger's Void Pearl, which gives you 10 shadow resistance and 18 attack power. So this works basically the same way as an Oni head works. When you kill Akumai at the end of BFD, you can loot a giant pearl. One person gets the pearl per raid, and then you turn that pearl in, and that's basically what drops the BFD buff and allows you to choose a trinket. So basically, if you're in a solid 10-man every reset, eventually everyone will get their trinket, and this would be your best in-slot trinket. And then for your second trinket, I put the insignia of the Alliance or of the Horde, because there are a lot of things that slow you down inside of BFD, and if you can get out of just some of them, that will increase your DPS by a lot. And now that we know we cannot farm the Arena Grandmaster trinket and all that stuff, the insignia of the Alliance or the Horde would be your second best in-slot trinket. And then as for our range slot, we have the Naga Heart Render in here. The Naga Heart Render drops inside BFD off of Lady Cerevis. 5 strength on this bow is just absolutely enormous. So you're obviously not going to be able to get that until you clear Lady Cerevis in the raid. So a close second would be the Ranger Bow. It's a BOE, but it does give you 1 agility, but it'll be pretty expensive, so I wouldn't really worry about getting it all that much. But if you're absolutely trying to min-max, this would be your best pre-raid, best in slot ranged weapon. So that's it, guys. That is my warrior gearing guide for phase 1, some pre-raid and some bist. I've had some time to actually play. We've cleared the entire raid, 7 out of 7. This is my honest and best warrior gearing guide. I can't really figure out anything more that can improve your DPS. This is going to give you 15% chance to crit, which is massive. You'll have 2% hit chance. This build will make you absolutely pump. Warriors are performing a lot better than I thought they originally were going to when we were just talking about all this and it was all speculation. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. Let me know if you guys are down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. It really does help me out a lot. And subscribe to the channel, guys. Turn on post notifications so you don't miss the next time I post a video. I'm going to be covering all of this season and then whatever the next season is and the next season. I love doing this. You guys are showing some great support, so I'm having a good time. And if you guys want to hang out with me live, I do stream on Twitch Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're doing all SOD content going forward. We're clearing the raid. We're doing open world PvP. We're doing pre-made war songs. We're having an absolutely blast. So that's twitch.tv/hammerdance. I'll drop a link to that in the description below this video. And if you want to join an awesome Discord community full of like-minded people who are having a blast on SOD and just have an absolute love for classic World of Warcraft, Discord link will be in the description below as well. We have a guild going on Lone Wolf NA, So come join us. We will welcome you with open arms. But anyways, guys, that's all I've got for you today. So thank you all so much for watching and listening in. I'll see you all in the next one.